Welcome everybody to Mud Flood was Armageddon. The Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they want to tell you it's a flat earth nation and the golden age is past. Welcome. I think this is going to be a show you might have been waiting for, hoping for. There is going to be some new information put out about end times, how it fell apart then, how all of Asia departed Paul. So get let's get everything out of the way. Good day to you, Luther. Let's check this out. Where's that thing? Here's this thing. Here's another weird thing. I had this labeled as weird noise. This is a sculpture I made. I don't know what the weird noise was, but that was called weird noise. Fragmented facts. 38 videos, 10 dark mysteries. It's one of those ones, it's got only 4,000 subscribers, but almost 1 million views in less than a month. I think I got 12 pictures of this. Let's just look at, let's walk down the pictures. You see this thumbnail? I wish I could have had a big splashy, flashy thumbnail, but Saint Teresa of Calcutta, acclaimed for her selflessness, amassed an immense wealth in the billions that she could have bankrupted the Vatican Bank. And not only that, when that was found out, everybody asked, why is a woman allowed to use the Vatican Bank? They needed her. Reports revealed that funds collected from the poor, desperate Hindus were not only used for charity, but funneled into global proselytism, evangelism. I don't think I'm going that way. I know I started. So that is the one here. So here it is, 38 videos. Police could never solve. This is what it's doing now. 2 days ago, 6 days ago. New proteins written by no one, corrupting science, anonymous data, police tape. Studying some weird things, aren't they? The things that we've been studying for a long time. They started out with every deadly idea that was meant to help. Thalidomide, that made children be born blind. All the famous blind singers, guess what they had in common mostly? They ended up getting, crazy, but there is so much weird going on in our world. Beliefs people thought was science. Where's the vaccine thing, right? It's got to be on there. Skull bumps. That's when they rub their head to say, you know what? You are white. You're not Irish or Italian. You're pure white. Everything is just, there's so many rabbit trails, as they say. And there are people ready to, join with you, focus, because there's nothing else for them to do. This was almost the thing. I think I showed some of this last week. Conspiracy RS did a 10-minute video on it. Pretty good, too. Here's that tile. He mentions a tile. There's one tile that was backwards. And you can see the guy thought, well, it mashes here. That must be it. He must have been in a hurry. But, in reality, you got to flip this 90 degrees to the right, clockwise, and then it would fit. They did it, these guys, in caustic tiling. They wanted to cover this up. They are covering it up. They wanted to. They did. Some of the other pictures he had were really good. They're, let's see, slow disclosure, here's massive public outrage. Huh. Scan the code. Wow. Oh, it's CNN. That's what I wanted to show you. It had been streaming for 10 minutes. They have 10 million subscribers and only 35 were watching with 2 thumbs up. So I don't feel so bad. I know that when the algorithms are true, there's still people sticking with me, and there's still people sticking with CNN. At 6 minutes, they only had 29 watching with 1 thumb up. So I thought I'd give them some more time because they have 10 million subscribers. Doesn't that seem like a lot? What do we got highlighted here? Creating new sections to be enacted by the people of the state of Washington. This established requirements because you had to have and I did too, when sports physical, if you want to do those extracurricular, interscholastic sports. But there was something in here, where it said, I don't know how old this was. I thought I saw it's where, you're assigned at birth, maybe you could see it. Student sex assigned at birth. So I don't know how old this is, but whenever you see that, include documentation of the student's sex assignment at birth. That means they want to see their birth certificate. Are you a male or female? Do you make sperm or do you make eggs? It doesn't matter how bumpy your head is. A lot of time on that one. Hey, this one, hey, look, the very first Christmas card, this guy got a thing and got a factory to make them, and it was like art. All of a sudden, they could do Christmas cards. Oh, look, a baby drinking wine, doobie doobie. Everybody was happy. Everybody had a different opinion about Christmas, that's for sure. Help the poor, feed the poor, be glad you weren't dead. Focus on how you're going to make it through the cold, cold winter. Dialectic attack on the Passion Explainer. So the Duke Report, he's not a Christian, but what he's saying is, the golden rule. Maybe he is a Christian. He's laying it out. What the world needs is agape. Maybe we should look that one up. Calm strength through a measured response. It is about mastering your impulses. Chrysis, reasoned judgment. Use it to find deletions and distortions. And the word, the faculty of reasoning and speech. Use it to analyze how issues are framed. Everything should be framed around the fact that there should be no physicality here. This was intended probably, or, I'm not going to get into infra or supralapsarianism, but there wouldn't be a need for the sound and vibration of the word creator, Jesus Christ, to make things flesh, dirt, dry ground, unless he was trying to prove something in the spirit world. More specifically, probably that he wasn't a twin. Here, I thought this was interesting. Natural process to counterfeit. Internal, external, free will, discernment, coercion, reaction, alignment with truth, control and compliance, moral clarity, unexamined belief. I'm afraid I don't want people to have that. They compared Illinois to the Nile Delta. Well, it's because it was the Nile Delta. You know that. Hey, look, there's even rattlesnakes in Illinois. Underneath the trees and things, there's these hoodoos and other things sticking out. This is right around Cairo, Illinois, where They said it looked like the Nile. They have these 1,000-year-old cypress trees. There's two. There was a book called The American Experiment by Sal Merriweather. And it's about the concept of the true American experiment cast an unsettling shadow over our understanding of America's founding principles. Historical accounts from the 1780s and 1790s reveal cryptic patterns in the correspondence between our founding fathers, particularly in exchanges between Jefferson and Madison that contain encoded references to mysterious overseers and something called the grand design. Our investigation in this book by Sal uncovered evidence that the Continental Congress received extensive guidance from unnamed benefactors. Well, going down to the next paragraph, examination of classified materials point to hidden societies, benefactors throughout the 1800s. We know that. All leading up, Alien Sedition Act, Trail of Tears, Japanese internment camps to the Patriot Act. After 9/11, they had that big long Patriot Act drew up and ready to go within a week or something like that. Hey! Unseen hand directing his response to the Great Depression. Yeah. I'm sure FDR thought that he had an unseen hand. Lincoln spoke of receiving visions of the Republic's true path. I think he probably made it up. Sounded good. Anyway, I tried to find something about that guy. I couldn't. Here's another. The World War II was a distraction. The whole fake atomic bombs, a way to explain all the Armageddon mud-flooded buildings that, we were going to build back up. They had built some back up, and now they had to build the rest. They were doing industry, too. What's this one? Records from the 1930s first brought attention to the Agarithian emissary theory, which suggests Hitler's meteoritic rise was linked to an ancient civilization beneath Earth's surface. His documented obsession with occult practices and mysterious expeditions to Tibet pointed to possible contact. Oh no, there were tunnels. Oh no. Particular fascination with the hollow earth. That's a rabbit trail. What's supernatural? I don't know if I wanted to do all these, but I wanted to read it, and the guy was going so slow, I just fast forwarded so I could read it myself. This is the main takeaway for tonight. Zervanism. Zervanism was influenced by Aristotle and the Empedoclean view of matter, some very queer forms. So this is what Zoroastrianism, when all of Asia departed Paul, it was influenced by this schism that we'll look at that tried to paint that, there is a Ahura Mazda. That's their name for Jehovah. That's how you say it in Babylon. The one God that Cyrus was anointed to, get it done. Nebuchadnezzar was there to, say, be his amen corner and support, the Daniel, Meshach, Shadrach, Abednego, Belshazzar. Oh, no, don't worry. The lions didn't eat me. Esther, the Babylonians and the Persians were proven that the Most High God is Jehovah, Yahweh, Jesus. And the Zervanians and the other people that wanted to be Jewish circumcisers, circumcised Gentiles. They were crazy. They were out of their mind. They didn't even want to read the Bible. Zervanism, we're going to get into that and more about that. Mother Teresa, the option that Zoroastrianism was so severely dualistic that it was, in fact, they claimed that it was, in fact, ditheistic or even tritheistic because of the Zervian doctrine, that into the late 1800s, when people went back and read it, they said the Zoroastrians worship Jesus. That's why everybody was flowing to Jerusalem, saying, teach us about your God. I'll build you a synagogue. They knew what the deal was. It was in the 1800s. Nobody knew about that Trinity stuff. Wow. I wish I had those teeth, because right now I am in the pain, man. So that's it. That was from last night. That can't be it. Wasn't there more for today? Guess not. Hey, man, I consider that a tease. I'm glad there's still somebody here watching. That's some good stuff so far. You wait and see. I do too. I love it. I could at least tie them, and they have 10 million. But this is important stuff here. I don't know if this is important or not. This was a spy, one of the infiltrators into the QAnon. This whole speaking in tongue things. I mean, I got tricked into believing it for about 6 months because my family, when I became, and I had these things that drew me to the Lord, and my family were going like, here, go to that church, go, and they're charismatic. So I went to it. When I got studying, I was going like, hey, I think I'm faking the tongues. But this guy, he didn't know nothing about it.
That they were the words of God, meaning literally God was speaking through them in the moment. At Speaking in Tongues, QAnon conferences hosted by General Flynn, where Kash Patel was a featured speaker. And the other featured speakers who General Flynn has personal relationships with and who he put on stage were doing things like speaking in tongues, calling themselves prophets. And when they talk on stage, they were doing this weird voice thing where they were saying that they were the words of God, meaning literally God was speaking through them in the moment. At this QAnon conference that I went to, I met General Flynn and I took a photo with him. So look, I hope that Kash Patel and Susie Wiles still answer Flynn's texts and calls.
Look, this whole thing of the QAnon using the Roman Catholics, and now Candace Owen, they're going to martyr her because she's a Roman Catholic, a recent Roman Catholic who likes Mormons, charismatics, and Noahide law. Stop it. What's this one? Oh, this is funny.
Using prepackaged sermons based on popular Christmas movies that only distract people from the true story of Jesus that's in the Bible. They're just copying stuff that they got off a website or something.
How many of you love the Christmas movie Elf? It came out in 2003 with Will Ferrell.
America. Smoking in church? Oh, how good it is. Church is not supposed to be fun.
Is from the movie Elf. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. I absolutely love the movie. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to ruin it for you right now. In my defense, you have had 16 years to see it at this point, so it's kind of on you.
How many of you love the Christmas movie Elf? It came out in 2003 with Will Ferrell. Okay, y'all need to get out more often.
For those of you in the audience who may have never seen this movie, I'm going to spoil it, by the way. It's been out for 20 years. If you haven't seen it, that's your fault, okay?
Isn't it? Being a pastor's easy. Anybody can do it. Here's that Sal thing. You can see it. I think maybe it's a robot.
Our first encounter with the
See, because he just had 20 different
or
things.
other people remain remarkably fixed. Our investigation revealed a compelling paradox.
Because there are so many rabbit trails. What's this one?
An unsettling theory known as the Thetan expungement emerged from leaked
Really? So, wow.
spiritual practices wielding tangible power over the physical realm. In the rich traditions of Aboriginal Australia, we find the profound concept of dreamtime, a belief that reality itself emerged.
Whatever. What's this one? So I did find that book. America has been regarded as a grand experiment in self-government. Greeks and Romans failed to achieve it. So it sounds like it was a real book, but I looked up Sal Merriweather and I didn't get anything. So I ended up having to find that he did that. Byron with the ION, McClanahan, did the forward on it. And he's one of these guys. I can't say for sure, but he seems like a state rights guy. That's his rabbit trail. Civil War wasn't about slavery. You've all heard that. But there isn't anything with Sal. I got this. Huh. I'll play it.
Mitras holding two metal rods. Electricity to the left, electricity to the right. Let's start making hydrogen.
Huh?
That's just in the sky. But man, I've never seen nothing like that. So I don't know, but that can't be good. That might be something else. It's like doing what a TV screen does.
The cling filter, don't do it.
When you record it.
Yo, what the fudge?
Or a computer screen.
Y'all hear that? Nothing, right? Now listen. Why is the dirty filter doing that?
Why is Dirty Filter doing that? Man, it's weird. There was a Klopak rebellion, anti-feudal uprising in Russia of the peasants and servile masses, which was the result of the strengthening of serfdom. So they rose up and they serfdom. You just got more dug in because they starved you. Oh, you want to fight back? How about we starve you? You get no food for 2 years. And then they came back and they said, hey, you know what? We want to eat. The main part of the rebels was the Polpaks, who fled from the estates due to the great famine, as their masters refused to feed them. But the masters hoped to claim their rights at them after the end of the famine. And they did. At the same time, government documents do not indicate the political nature of the uprising. The participants in the servant movement are called in them robbers and not thieves. The robbers did not try to establish control over certain cities and fortresses. The aim of the detachment of Kolfel and others like them was not to seize power, but to make a living and be able to feed your family. Isn't that crazy? But they said no. So they just wouldn't, hey, they killed them. They said, guess what? Wasn't Egypt better? You had leeks and onions. And they said, yeah. By decree, the Tsar Boris Goodenough, a thorough investigation was conducted into the circumstances of the uprising, since among the rebels there were servants of disgraced boyars. No reference, no anything. 2 sources. That's it. This sounds like a pretty big deal. Peasant uprisings. There's been more than one. 1913, 1994, 200 years before the Lord. It looks like there's always going to be people and the people in power that protect them to have an easy life with servants. There's the one. It's them against us, I guess. Let's see who had the most. 43 pages in Europe. Wow. 59 revolutions. Be a lot in 1948, I'll bet. 1848. That was a lot of revolutions. First Red Scare, second Red Scare, green corn, 1917. To run draft registers to earth. Draft riot checked by citizens. Mob of draft resistors. They had to get him to war. First they said no war, and then he said, well, I changed my mind. We got to have a war.
Powers, who befriends despotic world leaders in her role as the enforcer of a highly conservative and reactionary Catholic Church. Fair?
It seems to me grossly unfair that a lady who cannot fight back, aged 84, like His Royal Highness Prince Charles, is not in a position to answer back.
I couldn't believe anybody could actually make a program about Mother Teresa.
Which is hardly modest. She lends spiritual solace to dictators.
They're not being given a great deal of medical care. They're not being given painkillers really beyond aspirin and maybe, if you're lucky, some Brufen or something for the sort of pain that goes with terminal cancer and the things that they were dying of. And I thought, what's the point?
Modesty, simplicity, humility. By these canonical keywords, we are taught that we may recognize saints. Yet Mother Teresa regards herself as mandated by heaven, which is hardly modest. She lends spiritual solace to dictators and to wealthy exploiters, which is scarcely the essence of simplicity.
From its ludicrous...
I do want you to remember, I started off with, you saw the thumbnail. She could have shut down the Vatican Bank. She was a billionaire. And women are not allowed to be in the Vatican Bank. Am I sharing? Because you missed some good stuff. If I wasn't.
Chris title, Hell's Angel, to its final exaggerated accusations, Christopher Hitchens showed only that Channel 4 has sunk to the lowest form of tabloid television.
It didn't make an attempt to present a balanced picture.
He doesn't believe there's a balanced picture, She hung out with Robert Maxwell and took money from him. That's his boardroom. And of course, he's the easy target to blame him. She didn't do nothing wrong. She was just trying to make billions that she had in a personal account at the Vatican Bank.
Who would help her to build a hospice for the dwellers of Cardboard City. He was the only person I
couldn't say that was true of anyone but myself. I haven't been for 14 years.
So, do you think you're qualified to make such a program? Why did you make it?
I'm pre-qualified, yes.
Well, why did you make it?
Because I've long thought that the Niagara of uncritical publicity with which this woman has been conveyed to us is deceptive and has presented someone who is a selfless and dedicated and tireless worker for Catholic fundamentalism under the cloak, perhaps thrown over her by us rather than by herself, as she, I think, is not a hypocrite about it, but presented anyway as someone who does it purely for humanitarian reasons.
I just don't understand why you didn't go and talk to Mother Teresa and examine the work she was doing.
Perhaps ask Mr. Janouszek about his funding arrangements here, but it's certainly true we would have been very happy to go, and I would have loved to go again.
Can I answer that?
Everything we need.
Let's not get too wrapped up in it here. This is a girl that she's on a Catholic board, and she doesn't like that, Mother Teresa was exposed as somebody who hangs out with the Robert Maxwell types, dictators, and keeps the money.
From the religious
What's wrong with
environment,
that?
nobody from the medical environment, because we
There
were
was no one.
seeking.
You say you're disappointed it wasn't about her role as a doctor or nurse.
No, I'm saying
Which we
that if
never
you're going to
claimed,
level accusations, do it with people who know, who are experts
excuse
in
me,
their field.
ma'am, I did not interrupt you once. Which we never said it was. You now say you're disappointed about a false impression that none of us gave you. I'm sorry for your disappointment. I'm sorry for Mary's disappointment if it comes to that. I'm sorry for Mother Teresa's innocence, which is pleaded whenever she's caught doing something politically foolish.
What have you caught
Here is
her
the
doing?
situation.
She was guilty by association throughout
I
the
didn't
film.
interrupt you once.
Well, that's too bad. You have knocked somebody who is very precious
As
to a
was said at
great
the
many
beginning
people.
of the show,
Look at it. They are going to dig in on their side. If they're Roman Catholic, it's the wide road. And what difference does it make if you're a tongue-talking, leather pants wearing, buying your sermons online because they've been pre-screened to guarantee results? Have you seen the movie Elf? If not, what's wrong with you?
And Karen Armstrong's The Pope's Divisions also fit a formula. We're given a tabloid title with dubious connection to the content of the film. We're not told anything about the presenter. It is only their body language that gives their claims authority and legitimacy. Endless.
I don't want to get hung up on this too much, but I do want you to see this couple more parts.
Simplistic. That's just an excuse. The church operates in millennia, sure, but it's still responsible for what it does now. This is the same institution that covered up abuse, denied contraception in countries ravaged by HIV, and preached poverty while sitting on billions in art and property. How long do we have to wait before criticism becomes balanced?
Forever. Because this is Christopher Hitchens, exposing these things in the 80s and 90s. People don't care. Candace Owens in there bringing it back, tongue-talking, leather pant wearing. Oof.
You said that Christopher, who I believe is an atheist, was an appropriate figure to do this.
I thought I didn't consider Christopher's religion when I don't actually look into see his CV and see what denomination he is. We don't do that at
But if
church.
you're aren't you all here, ladies, and since some of you represent Catholic institutions of one kind or another, perhaps I could ask you to comment on Mrs. Victoria Gillick, a prominent lay Catholic, who said that the problem with my film, so the problem with our film,
Can you only deal in terms of...
Stop bleating. Who said that the problem with our film was that the chief executive of this channel, Michael Grade, is a Jew, and that my executive producer, Tariq Ali, is a Muslim. Now, would you care to associate or dissociate yourself with that piece of bigotry?
If you equate bigotry with religious perspective.
What do you think of Mrs. Gillick?
She is obviously a bigot. Anybody who said what she did is a bigot. But Christopher, we...
Oh, man.
Even if we rewind time to 1970, that image of absolute poverty often associated with Kolkata is simply not there. So why do we have this image in our mind? It's largely thanks to Mother Teresa. She created and perpetuated this image of extreme poverty, which would more greatly emphasize her acts of charity. And she was aided by a documentarian named Malcolm Muggeridge. And at the time of his documentary in 1969, Mother Teresa was unknown outside of India. But the documentary, which I'll link below if you want to watch it, but trust me, it's not worth it. This documentary propelled her to a higher level of international recognition. And together, they would paint this image of Kolkata as almost a shamefully poor place, which would, of course, make her deeds even more incredible. Muggeridge himself had been on a spiritual journey of his own, so to say that he perhaps held a bias towards the religious is putting it lightly. And you'll see why I'm pointing this out shortly. Muggeridge was there to cover Mother Teresa's work in her House of the Dying, a charitable establishment whose public purpose was to take care of terminally ill people. While setting up in one of the dingy rooms inside, the crew had noticed that the level of light was less than ideal for filming. They did indeed film in this area, and there are two accounts of the day's events. The first, from Malcolm, states that the cameraman said that it was impossible to film inside there, as it was too dark, but they tried anyway. Upon processing the film later, they found that the scenes shot inside the dingy room were beautifully lit, with an almost angelic and unexpected light, which Malcolm would describe to everyone as an actual miracle. How else could a technically impossible light be explained except that a person as holy and selfless as Mother Teresa would have such an aura? I'm paraphrasing a little bit there, but the actual quote is honestly just as ridiculous sounding as my accounting of it. Quote, "In the processed film, the part taken inside was bathed in a particularly beautiful soft light. I myself am absolutely convinced that the technically unaccountable light is in fact the kindly light Cardinal Newman refers to in his well-known exquisite hymn. I am personally persuaded that Ken recorded the first authentic photographic miracle." Told you was mental. Now the cameraman tells a very different story. I'm just going to let him speak his own words.
During Something Beautiful from God, there was an episode where we were taken to a building that Mother Teresa called the House of the Dying. And Peter Schaefer, the director, said, it's very dark in here. Do you think we can get anything? And we had just taken delivery at the BBC of some new film made by Kodak, which we hadn't had time to test before we left. So I said to Peter, well, let's have a go. So we shot it. And when we got back several weeks later, a month or two later, we're sitting in the Rushes Theatre at Ealing Studios, and eventually up came the shots of the House of the Dying. And it was surprising. You could see every detail. And I said, that's amazing, that's extraordinary. And I was going to go on to say, 3 cheers for Kodak. I didn't get a chance to say that though, because Malcolm, sitting in the front row, spun round and said, it's divine light. It's Mother Teresa.
Ireland so that she could learn English and become a missionary herself. After joining the missionaries, she would never see her mum and sister again, prevented from visiting them by the oppressive Albanian government. If you're curious why she wasn't permitted to return to her family again in Albania, it's because the head of Albania, a dude called Enver Hoxha, had recently declared Albania to be an atheist nation. Actually, he declared it to be the world's first atheist nation. And so, Mother Teresa, as a very public representative of Catholicism, had become a threat to the state. She would then take her religious vows and named herself after the patron saint of missionaries, Thérèse de Lisieux. Apologies for any French people out there, I did my best. She taught in the convent school there for
blah, blah, blah. So you get a little background on her, right?
As the money and attention began to pour in, she opened more hospices all over India, and then spreading to other countries too. By the time the 1970s rolled in, she had opened hospices for the poor and sick in South America, North America, Africa, Asia, and Europe, always in the poorest and most deprived areas. By the mid-1970s, Mother Teresa had grown the charity so much that it reportedly had over $50 million sitting in its bank accounts, making it a now very well-funded organization. Which makes the next part of the story very confusing. In 1994, Dr. Robin Fox, an editor of The Lancet, visited the House of the Dying after hearing of its worldwide acclaim and spoke about it both positively and critically in worrying fashion. He mentioned how 2/3 of the people who come to the house are non-critical patients who simply couldn't get admitted to the hospital because they weren't sick enough, but that the other third were seriously ill people who needed far greater care than the home could, or perhaps more accurately, would provide. He talks about how the 2/3 of non-critical patients leave the house in a better condition than they arrived, because they often just needed a few nights shelter and food, something which the house was willing to provide. But the other third, who needed a greater level of care, were not being cared for adequately. In fact, it could be better labelled as medical malfeasance. Dr. Fox said, "There are doctors who call in from time to time, but usually the sisters and volunteers, some of whom have medical knowledge, make decisions as best they can. I saw a young man who had been admitted in poor shape with high fever, and the drugs prescribed had been tetracycline, to be pretty cruel, and was nicknamed Thatcher the Milk Snatcher because she cancelled free school milk for underprivileged children to save a few $100,000 from her budget instead of just taxing corporations a fraction more." She defended Priest Donald Maguire, as he was accused, tried, and convicted of the sexual abuse of children throughout the 1960s, an especially egregious person to support given that the vast majority of her charity fundraising was done in aid of orphans. In 1992, her friend Charles Keating was convicted of defrauding the American public out of $250 million. Teresa wrote a personal letter to the judge on the case asking for clemency and leniency for her friend, claiming that she knew him to be a good man who had done many great things for the poor. So the prosecutor replied telling her exactly who Charles Keating was, and even that one of the people he fleeced was an elderly working-class carpenter who lost his entire life savings in the scam. Teresa didn't bother to respond. Now, each of these people had their own trying period. The real mission is hidden right there in plain sight in that quote that I gave you earlier. There is always the danger that we become only social workers or just do the work for the sake of work. It is a danger if we forget to whom we are doing it. Our works are only an expression of our love for Christ. The real mission is spreading the Catholic faith and its values. Actually, mostly just one value.
The greatest destroyer of peace today is the cry of the innocent, unborn child.
Anti-abortion. Right from the very beginning, really, she used her celebrity and platform to spread an anti-abortion message. Now, abortion is a thorny issue for many people, regardless of which side of it you land on. Mother Teresa answered.
It is not a thorny issue for me. That's how they, got Catholics infiltrating Protestants, the Operation Rescue, getting people arrested, protesting. Then they went back to Rome. It was a way to make them ecumenical with people who would have never have been ecumenical before. It's all a part of the same thing. Let's wrap it up, dude.
On being single or divorced. Now, does that sound like an organization focused on doing what is best for orphans? It sounds to me more like one which is more interested in pushing an agenda. In 2018, the charity was investigated for child trafficking after it was found that 4 kids from the orphanage had been sold to private parents against legal restrictions. And in 2022, the Nicaraguan government ordered them to close down after they refused to comply with Nicaraguan anti-money laundering laws.
Would you think that everybody that they prop up and make famous is to somehow get into the child trafficking? We'll have to consider it. Mother Teresa's savings were so huge that it could have emptied the Vatican Bank. That probably would have been a better thumbnail right there, huh? I always think I'll go with the block. Doesn't say how much. Does it say what's her bank total? Was it billions? This guy, Nuzzi's book, The Original Sin, Mother Teresa was believed to have by far the most cashed up account. There you go. That's a very modest jacket for such a rich woman. Everybody just plays their part. Did Erica Kirk has, he can play the part of the, hey, look at me in leather pants. Mother Teresa play, a character actor. You play the cards you're dealt. She could do this. They got other people like Melania, cash propped up. So at one time in 1907, it propped up the bank. It was going to fail. She got the Peace Prize, given total sainthood. She is a saint. Wow. I'm looking for a dollar amount. Not 5 and 100. 100 million a year, that adds up fast. And some of it was going to her own Vatican bank to keep them, it adds up. Who is this guy? So this is I looked for Sal Merriweather. I mean, I first I searched for Sal Merriweather. I didn't get anything. I guess there is a comic book called Merriweather, and that's all they want to talk about. We're like, no, man, come on. It's got to be Sal Merriweather history book. He wrote a book. You got a Merriweather engine. Still want to force the girl in the cartoon. Sal. This is an old song. Sal got mud between her toes. Me, oh my, oh. I'm kidding. I just wanted to see. There's nothing there. I'm not sure about this transcendental meditation. And I'm not, biblical. Meditate on scripture, that's endorsed. If you're thinking of a scripture and you want to think about it, that's called meditation, phonetically in the Greek, But this was a core belief is the inherent goodness of people and nature. Okay, we got them off the narrow road, right off Jump Street, right there. That's the second sentence, and it's already who. We want to talk, I need to get you sitting down. So anyway, that's what they go with the Harvard. You ever hear that? It's a very popular school for rich people. Intuition over objective, what you can observe, what you can see. Empiricism. One of the several views within epistemology. Epistemology, the study of how you know what you know. And if yours doesn't include that Bernays, those guys that do the advertising, you're not up to speed. If you're still thinking about David Hume, you couldn't convince him if you hit a cue ball into the 8-ball and it went into the corner pocket that the cue ball is what moved the 8-ball. I doubt it. And so they just talk about nonsense, but they all just want you to clear your mind and think about how good you are. There are all these famous people. Like, look, this is how you rewrite history. Then I won a contest and I designed a building and got $100,000. Second wave. Who are they? Margaret Fuller. She doesn't look old enough to be from the second wave. Look at this is a long one, huh? It's important to nature when you meditate. It's a new thought. Anything but Jesus is the way they like it. Look at, I told you. All the famous people that they shoved down your throat are transcendentalists. If you read it, or you were assigned it, Walt Whitman, that's why they force these people with mediocre talent down our throats. Edgar Allan Poe, transcendentalist. Freemasonry, dark romanticism. Oh, is it really? Huh. Emu War. You got to be kidding me. How stupid were we after World War I? And I mean everybody, everywhere, not only in Australia. They went to war against the emu because they had some discharged veterans. They built them some crappy house on some farming land in our agriculturally marginal areas. And then the birds came in and they were going like, these birds are tearing down my fence, man. So this guys are like, send in the people with the Gatling guns. So they sent in people with Gatling guns to kill them. It says they killed about 10,000 rounds of ammunition out of the Gatling guns, and they got, a couple dozen. First attempt, they said 50 emus were sighted. Perhaps, maybe a dozen birds were killed, but they didn't have anything else to do, so they wanted them to kill 100 emus so they could skin them and make their feathers for their horsemen. A little bit of easily distracted we humans are. Grayla's a monstrous entity. This is the female version of Santa. They don't allow people to talk about it, but in the 1600 poems about her represented as a hideous, greedy, troll-like crone. Another one of those Arctic fox, huh? Murmurs play. She's described as something that, you think they were talking about that in the 1600s? Her pet's the Yule cat, vicious cat. Where do they get this? Now they're bringing it back. Starting to bringing it back, man. Appears as the main villain in a comedy film, Red One. How about that? So they got to bring it back. There was a pig war. They thought somebody shot a pig. They said, "You killed my pig, and I brought it to this island. It's worth $3,500, not $40 I paid for it, because I brought it to the island, and it's, whatever." So they got in a war over it. And this is how they obscure history. And when people get mad, get drunk, they do crazy things. That's our history. Who knows the stories we've missed from Christmas about the killing of the pig in a San Juan island brought England and the United States to the brink of war and helped settle territorial rights. It was all a big fake plan, something behind it covered up by their friends. This is kind of like charismatic stuff. 1962, mass hysteria. Psychogenic illness, rumored to have occurred Tanzania. Affected students. I know in the 1990s it affected one of my volleyball players at Christian Liberty Academy. She had to quit. She had to drop out of school for 40 days or something like that. This is a known thing. People studied it, couldn't believe it. What is going on? It came back the next year even more. And they were laughing, but it wasn't that fun. So here's a bunch of different things. Mass psychogenic illnesses. See, I guess they really didn't, there weren't really people dressing up like clowns. That was mass psychosis. Social mania. Outpouring of enthusiasm, mass involvement, and millennial goals. The drinking milk miracle. I missed it. Huh? Well, how about that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure I believe that one. Satanic panics had to happen in the 80s around everywhere because, that's how they had to hush it up. No, you're panicking. Caves everywhere. They knew about them way back then. What refresh my memory, Paco. What is this? Largest of 3 lineages of the modern hexapod that are no longer considered insects. Huh. They have internal mouth parts. Weird. Early DNA sequence suggests a separate evolutionary line. You know, I can't get on board with that. That's some very wide road. Hey, there's another dancing mania. These things happen too. Look at the fun she's having dancing. Weird stuff. Who knows what we're going to see them try to pull off now, because 2026 is right around the corner. And I'm thinking not much of a picnic. I'm going to get into that Zoroastrianism pretty soon. So this is like halfway through the golden age. The wheats and the tares are being separated, and stress induced, you know, like, well, you have to worry about, I'm a serf. Am I going to be starved to prove a point? Did they really think it was like, oh, I got it from spores coming on barley or something? They ultimately danced to death. That's where the controversy exists. Did anybody actually dance to death? Thought it was food poisoning, mass hysteria. Yeah, I just wanted you to see this. And I'm so thankful that the POV channel here filmed it. We like to talk about sound and vibration and so there you got a pretty good look at it. Show me how you found it, dude.
And then now all the frequencies messed up. Look. Now it's an interference pattern. But it'll realign itself.
Yeah, you could only film that a couple hours a day. This dude wears himself out. He's descending the Grand Canyon.
Cool.
That's a body part.
I always thought it would be amazing to find impossible geometry in the Grand Canyon, and I have spent countless hours, maybe even days, looking for it on Google Earth. I'm gonna find it one day. The hiking right now is so treacherous. It would be so easy to break an ankle. Knock on wood. My legs hurt. It is impossible to not be slipping and falling everywhere. Cool. Goodbye, beautiful sun.
A little bit more.
Means that we have descended from anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000 feet into the bottom of the earth to get to where we are right now.
8 things red in retail, your mood, your colors, your flags. There's your red and white, blue, white, a little bit of red, green. Okay. The moment when consumers enter a shopping mall or store and surrounded by an intentionally confusing layout, lose track of their original intentions, making them more susceptible to making impulse buys. All right. So 1952, we've been studied and now they turned us loose and the wide road is going to be so happy. So as I've said before, I believe the time of the Gentiles is over. Been over since, it was mostly Gentiles saved back before Armageddon. This is how all Asia departed Paul. It became a fatalistic religious movement within what the Gentiles called Zoroastrianism, and we call Christianity. They're the one who sent the Magi. They were taking it serious. It was a den of thieves by everyone involved in the system. But what they have, their first principle to cause the whole baloney is that they're twins, equal but opposite, good, bad. One went bad and no, he's really good. One claims to be good, but he's really bad. It's those guys. They're Satan, It was only new put upon them, and yet nobody made the connection. So I'm leaving it up to you. When you look at it, the fundamental division of the material and spiritual is not altogether foreign. Where Ahura Mazda is said to have created all first in its spiritual, then later in its material form, very consistent with the Bible. Because we are an object lesson to the angels who are not omnipresent or omniscient. They were desirously looking in to see what matter of things is this when our Christ was hung on the cross. Curse. He was made curse. There's something going on here. It was the Babylonians, it was the Persians who pointed everybody to Jerusalem, rebuilt the temple. Bible teaches they could not have done it without the Babylonians and the Persians, and Cyrus was his anointed. I don't think this is fake, the Cyrus cylinder. There's too much. There's a Cyrus the Great, Esther's husband is pretty famous in history. Saul was anointed. Cyrus was anointed. This is what the Lord says to Cyrus, his anointed, whose right hand I have grasped to subdue the nations before him, to disarm kings, to open the doors before him, so that the gates will not be shut. He's going to go before Cyrus. God is going to go before them, level mountains, break down the gates of bronze, the bars of irons. I'm saying he made them. I wanted to find it in the Hebrew. That's the verse I want to look at. My internet is saying it's got 4 of the 5 bars. Somehow you have been redeemed. This is a good word, right? Christ redeemed, that he might redeem, redeeming your time because, we have things to do for the Lord. And then Colossians, them that are without, redeeming the time. It's a pretty straightforward word. The curse, though. We were redeemed from the curse of the law. And here's another curse. Cursed is everyone hanging on a tree. Huh. There it says it. What's this one? Let's go to verse 48, 49, and 50. Have any of the rulers of the Pharisees believed in him? But this crowd that does not know the law, they are under a curse. Nicodemus, who had gone to Jesus earlier and who himself was one of them, asked, does our law convict a man without first hearing from him to determine what he has done? Pretty strong. This is a curse. To go down, receive a penalty due to condemnation, a penalty curse. James 3:10, Hebrews 6:8, and Galatians 3. Abstract for the concrete. We better look at that one. Eyes full of adultery. Their eyes are full of adultery. Their desire for sin is never satisfied. They seduce the unstable. They are accursed children with hearts trained in greed. Oh, who are these saints? Saints. They're saints, the holy, anything separated and dedicated to God. And that's what I hope you are. We're learning much. We're going through much. We wouldn't be going through it if the Lord didn't think it was for our own good. I hope you believe that all things work together for good to those who love Christ Jesus. And I hope you know it's a flat earth nation. The golden age is past. The mud flood was Armageddon. I'm never going to tell you anything else. Why would I? Trying to prove I have your best interest at heart